Karen Worsfold from GSK, who will continue talking about Excel and how they are doing SAR analysis in Excel.
Okay, well thank you very much for ChemAxon for inviting me to talk today. I'm going to talk about Helium, which is an application that's been in some shape or form been worked on at GSK for about the last 4 years. So the title of the talk, a data-driven user tool for structure-activity relationship analysis. And if technology doesn't let me down, I will try and do a live demo as well. Okay, so what am I going to talk about today? I'm going to try and give you an understanding of why we undertook the development of Helium. So the basics of where the idea came from, how we were able to get users on board with it and accept it. Quick snapshot of what the architecture looks like and some functionality, and hopefully show you what that really looks like real time. Follow on from some of the benefits that Tamas highlighted in his last talk, and also give you a insight into some of the plans that we've got for the future of Helium. So a bit of background. A few years ago at GSK we had, back in the 90s is that edge of the slide, we had what felt was, well, we now realise was quite a lot of people in IT. We had a reasonable amount of money. We had lots of legacy applications from different the merged companies as well. So this yellow box kind of indicates quite a few of the applications that we had in the Discovery Research Scientist desktop, some of which obviously are commercial, so you'll recognise Spotfire and Infosense. Others are developed in-house, but with, for example, Chemically OS spreadsheet was built on the Accord grid. And then we had some other kind of completely bespoke applications like Discovery Explorer, which was our front end onto our biological data. So we had various challenges, which meant that the number of resources and the money that we had to spend in this space was reduced. So we took the opportunity to see if we could rationalise these applications and reduce the number, both to help users. So we did have the feedback that new starters had so many different applications to learn to use, but also copying and pasting between applications and all those kind of hassles. So this is where Helium fitted into this space. We wanted the Helium to be the application that could go and bring data in, and we've integrated it into 2 hosts. So we've integrated it both into TIBCO Spotfire and into Excel. So allowing the user to view the data in different ways and make use of the visualization in those host tools, but with Helium going and getting the data. And obviously for the Excel beast, we've used JChem for Excel to provide the structure rendering. And then just for completeness, I've put the ISISnet piece on the bottom as well. So as part of this simplification project that GSK went through, we wrapped up all of these projects into all of these applications to be deployed into a single project. So to complete the picture, I've got Instant JChem down the bottom there to replace ISISnet. So the very beginning was the idea of maybe having the ideal of maybe a one-stop for people getting their SAR data. We wanted to give the users the control over the data, so not having to know where the data was stored, not having to go to a separate application to get one piece of data, move to another application to get another bit. So try and help the user not needing to know where the data was stored or what application had that particular bit of data. Well, the very first prototype, I believe, was just a blank screen, so allowed the user complete flexibility. They could paste in their data. Helium would work on a data typing to then present you with a list of things you could do. But the initial feedback was that was just almost too flexible. So they kind of didn't know where to start. So the next step was to integrate with a host, so allowing the user a little bit more guidance, but not still controlling what data they were getting or anything. So, as I mentioned, Helium in itself is an application to go and get the data, and then the host application, in this case TIBCO Spotfire, would allow you to then visualize the data. And I'm sure most of you know what Spotfire is. You've obviously got a host of different ways in which you can then visualize your data. Some other advantages for TIBCO Spotfire is it had the ability to have in plug-in panels. So Helium is a plug-in panel, and hopefully I'll be able to show you that, but also other things like Structure Viewer. And we also had the idea of a Forms View type panel as well. So we had this idea And we did this proof of concept to see if that would work. So we had what we called cold turkey experiments. So this was, again, at the proof of concept stage, trying to get a feel for what this tool could actually do. And what we did, we got a group of discovery scientists together and basically said, we want you to stop using all the legacy tools, which are on the screenshot I showed at the start, and we wanted you just to use Helium with Spotfire. And basically we had daily meetings with them where they tried to do their day job, and as soon as they identified something they couldn't do, we took that away. The developer would work on it at the end of the day and usually give it to them the following day, and they could then do the next step that they needed to do. So we really were able to quickly respond to their requests, show them that we were understanding what they needed and building up a tool that they could really use. And they did really like what Helium could offer with the functionality and what kinds of data and the kind of stepwise way in which they could build up their data sets. So that was the positive piece. The less positive piece was the forms view that we attempted to put in. So it was quite a basic forms view, so we probably weren't very surprised, but it was very difficult to get the data model to work, to allow them to be able to see the data in that forms view. And obviously, yeah, functionality-wise, it was very basic. And there was some resistance to some chemists that they were concerned that Spotfire was just too big a tool. It was almost too difficult for users to kind of get into. The expert users of Spotfire love it, but for a new starter, the worry was that we wouldn't be able to get everybody to adopt Spotfire. So we looked at all the situation, all the data there, and this is what we decided to do. So we thought we'd integrate Helium into Excel so that it was a easy kind of access tool for a kind of a grid visualization. We would have Helium in TIBCO Spotfire, so you could still do the more complex visualizations and the larger data sets, the bigger scale, and then Instant JChem to do the forms view. So it wasn't quite as simple as maybe we initially hoped we could do, but it still obviously is fewer applications than we had in that legacy situation. And again, the idea was, or the goal was, that users wouldn't need to choose what tool based on what data they wanted, but what they wanted to do with the data. So if they're reviewing a compound, look at their Instant JChem would get their data in that forms view. If they're looking at lists where they want to sort, then Helium and Excel would work. And again, as I say, if they're in large data sets, then TIBCO Spotfire would probably be the tool they'd go to. But the data they can actually get would be the same. So obviously, as you know, we bought the ChemAxon suite of tools. So this obviously supported what we wanted to do. So we had the Helium integrated with Excel and the JChem for Excel piece to sit with it to be able to do all the structure manipulation. And we were, in the demo, hopefully it'll show you that Helium calls the API. So we have deployed both tools to the desktop, but for some users, they might not even know that JChem is there. They can just use Helium, and Helium will call the JChem bits they want, but JChem is there, so they can use it and everything that JChem has got to offer. Again, following on from some of the benefits that Tamas pointed out just now, that we thought Excel was an accessible tool for people, and they know how to use Excel, and it is on everybody's desktop. Instant JChem was a tool that allowed them to have that comfort factor in not losing their ISIS forms view. It looks similar enough to make the move, and obviously Instant JChem was a lot more functional than anything we could write from scratch. And again, the hope was with JChem cartridge and toolkit behind the scenes that everything would talk to each other and we would get that consistency of data across all of our tools. So the actual deployment project that we kicked off, various key points to try and identify why we thought we were quite successful. So we had a lot of sponsorship and support from the actual scientists, and we had our lead user group actually run by somebody in the business, so it wasn't IT forcing this change on them, even though it was largely cost driven. We actually had the business discussing all their requirements, come up with decisions, etc. We did an agile development approach, so we had bi-weekly deliverables which went out to our extended user group every couple of weeks, and we had it was accessing live data, so they could actually use it for their real day job for the functions that we deployed at each point. And as Thomas again just mentioned, we did have a lot of good collaborative working relationship, so we were able to share any issues that we had as we were coming along and get that response and able to deploy the fixes and get it out to everybody. So a quick snapshot, I'm not going to talk about this in too much detail, but just to kind of indicate that Helium is largely using web services, but we do have direct calls to Oracle databases as well, and we do have users across the globe ranging from the US through a lot of Europe and China and Singapore. And the data sets, we've got the ability to range in Excel at least from 1 up to, well, we don't quite go up to the million rows that Excel claims it can cope with, but definitely tens of thousands people have been able to do. Just a quick comment about keeping Helium up to date. So I haven't mentioned the Spotfire piece, but in Excel we decided to use the Microsoft Click Once, the BSTO updates. So that means that we don't have to get the users to pull anything when we want to put out updates. Basically on launching Excel, every 30 days it checks for updates and will automatically download them. So obviously we felt that this was very important for our maintaining any bug fixes or new enhancements we wanted to deploy in Helium. Yeah, especially as our users don't read their email to install anything new. And just, I'll mention Spotfire in a minute, but we have got Helium integrated with Spotfire as well, and that's automatically got the mechanism for checking for updates when you log on to the server. And again, we enforce a 30-day, you have to log on to the server every 30 days. Okay, so I'm in Excel. What we've got is the Helium ribbon, you can see at the top, and then you've got the JChem ribbon. So we haven't changed the JChem ribbon at all, but we've got an additional Helium ribbon here. And then we've got this icon here which brings up a Helium panel on the right-hand side. So the key driving feature of Helium is this concept of data type. So you can see I've got a blank cell highlighted at the moment. So at the top there, you've got the data type and we called it null. And these are some functions that will work for without a data starting point. But if I select my column of identifiers here, it's now worked out that that's actually an identifier, and we've called these ones external IDs. And you can see various functions that I can now do. So for example, if I click on the get structure, it'll go away, and the way we've set this up, we've got various databases that you can go and search. I know these identifiers should be in ACD. So that's going away, searching for those identifiers, and now brought back the structures. So now I can click on the structure, and you can see that I've now got a whole list of different functions that are now available for that data type. So this is the basic concept of Helium, is that you don't need to know where those data are coming from, whether it is calling a database or using a web service or where the database is. The user just gets prompted with a list of things they can do. And you can see the variety of things there. So calculating simple properties we've got as a web service. We've got substructure searching, we've got some normalization features. And again, Excel is obviously flexible, so I can highlight just one row, calculate, for example, some simple properties. Brings up a whole list that I can choose from. And I'll just bring those in, and you've just got the data for that one row if you wanted to. And again, I've already showed you a whole column. So that allows users to build up their data set in any way that they want to, so supporting the flexibility and the variety that we get across the globe and the different functions of people that use Helium. And obviously, because we're in Excel, well, because we've got JChem as well, you can then use all the JChem functions on your data that you've got there. So that's the Helium bit. Oh yeah, the other point, so we've got this ability to automatically data type the content of the cells, but we have got the kind of the backup plan, if you like, of an ability to manually change the data type. So for example, we've got the way that our compound numbers work, our parent can sometimes look like a version, so we can't automatically tell it's a parent, but if you know that it's a parent, you can tell it, Helium, this is the data type, and then you'll get the functions specific to that. And if I just go down to, so we've got a GSK compound here, so again you can see this now knows it's a GSK compound number, so now we've got a lot of tasks which are specific to our internal compound identifiers. So going out to get biological data, going out to get compound availability, doing all the hierarchy lookups. So again, if I just prove that we've got other ones that are working. So compound availability, they're all the stores that we've got. If I knew which one it was in, I could deselect and just pick that one. And hopefully that will go away and see. So that's gone away and found all the samples. Okay, we've only got one. Tells you more information about where you've got. So this is kind of accessible for the chemists, the biologists, through to corporate IP people. We've got a whole variety of people using helium. So that's just a quick snapshot. I won't go through all the functions, but I've given you an idea. And this is just some of the, I don't have the data for the legacy applications, but this slide was tried to put together to kind of show the scale of rows that you can cope with, and also the fact that we know that the speed of this application is a lot better than our legacy apps. Plus there's also some things in there that we couldn't do before. So for example, that first row where we have a project code where compounds are registered, you'd have to have done that individually before in legacy tools, whereas now we can select a whole list of 110 and get all the data back. Again, restating the benefits of being in Excel is that we've also got new features from Excel, so conditional formatting, that kind of putting in calculated columns, all are reasonably straightforward. And the benefits of our Helium is that we've not had to develop any of these visualizations. Some of our legacy tools, we had to do all of this as part of the application coding. Some more examples. So a quick summary of the benefits. So we're trying to help our users have new capabilities in there. They're bringing the data together, different types of data, obviously depending on what users need. People are familiar with Excel, so they took on board this Helium application really quickly. I think, yeah, we probably mentioned all those other benefits. So this is just to kind of show you that we've integrated the same Helium into Spotfire, and even though it looks slightly different, the concept is very similar. So we've had to do 2 panels instead of just the one. Effectively, we've got Helium panels. So we've had to introduce another panel just to be able to select the columns, but the same idea. You've got a Helium panel down here that can go away, do searching, bring back the data in the same way, and I won't dwell on the demo too much, but this principle is very similar, that we've now got the different data types and the different functions that you can use. And a quick update on the number of users. So Helium and Excel, we got out to about 1,200 researchers, and this gives you an indication, and the pie chart there is an indication of the different sites that we've got using Helium and Excel. And Helium for Spotfire we've only released pretty much a couple of months ago, and as of yesterday we had about 550 users. So we're catching up with both of those. So far the feedback has been positive. And some smiley faces, which you can just about see. The external recognition that Ashley mentioned yesterday. So we were awarded the Bio-IT World Winner of Knowledge Management Best Practices a couple of weeks ago at their conference for Helium and Excel. And the last slide is just talking a bit about some of our ideas that we've got for Helium. So we're working with some of the features in JChem for Excel to make it even better. We've got the idea of wanting to make Helium available outside of GSK. We also want to enhance Helium to access even more data. So there's various things like we've got additional inventories which are keyed on barcode. So again, that's a natural extension to what we've already got Helium doing. And we're also looking at the idea of Helium in a browser. So that might lend itself to kind of a compound CV type access to the data. And then the other point is obviously my project as a whole is looking at the instant JChem piece. So we're working on creating some of the HViews right now, and instant JChem we're hoping we'll be able to start deploying in the next month or so. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you, Karen, very much for this lovely presentation, and congratulations to this work. It's really great how you integrated Helium into Excel. You said that you want to share this integration outside GSK. Is there anything now in this integration that is specific to GSK, so that you will have to change, like recognizing the data types in the table?
I think the data types probably not, but the way that we've got security, yes. So at the moment it's one security, you see everything, and that obviously includes all of our biological data, all of the compounds, all of the structures. So we would need to sort that out. And there were some other little things, like we've got the ability to import the ChemAxon spreadsheet format, so one of our legacy tools. Obviously nobody else has that because that was written for us. But on the whole, that's probably just the security, effectively what we need to manage.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again.